Now, look. The manual says that's supposed to stop hysterics. It doesn't say a word about getting slapped back.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Forget it. I've been slapped by dames before.
Robert Mitchum never took himself too seriously. "I have two styles of acting, with or without a horse," he once said. But behind that sleepy-eyed, laconic image was a guy who knew exactly what he was doing. Hollywood loved him, even if he didn't love it back. He had zero patience for industry, nonsense, and a healthy disregard for stardom. Even a 1948 jail stint barely made a dent in his career. He just kept working, walking onto set like he owned the place, and delivering some of the most natural, unforced performances in film history. Here are 10 of his best. After nearly 30 films, mostly bit parts and forgettable villains in low-budget westerns, 27-year-old Robert Mitchum finally got his shot. Playing a battle-hardened lieutenant in the story of G.I. Joe, Mitchum delivered something Hollywood hadn't seen from him before: compassion, quiet strength, and raw humanity. His character spends most of the war writing letters to the families of fallen soldiers, carrying the weight of loss on his shoulders. It wasn't a huge role, but it hit hard. The Academy noticed. Mitchum landed his first and only Oscar nomination for it. Not that he cared. He didn't even bother showing up to the ceremony. By then, his star was already rising, and he wasn't about to start playing the Hollywood game. After the story of G.I. Joe, Mitchum's career took off, and 1947 was his year. He cemented himself as a film noir heavyweight with Crossfire and Out of the Past, but Pursued is different. Raoul Walsh took a western and gave it the mood of a noir, and Mitchum plays this guy with a past that won't leave him alone. Some of it's a blur, but the pieces he does remember are bad. No matter what he does, trouble keeps coming for him. For years, Pursued was forgotten, just another old western nobody talked about. Then Martin Scorsese stepped in and paid for a full restoration. That's the only reason people are even talking about it today. Mitchum once joked that in El Dorado he was basically John Wayne's leading lady. This was Howard Hawks remaking his own Rio Bravo with a few tweaks. This time, Mitchum steps into Dean Martin's old role as the drunken sheriff, a man barely holding it together. A tin star with a drunk pinned to it, as Wayne's aging gunfighter puts it. The two of them bounce off each other perfectly, their chemistry keeping the whole thing moving. Unlike Martin, Mitchum doesn't get a musical moment here, but he absolutely could have. The man had a solid baritone and actually recorded a couple of albums, even scoring a hit single with Thunder Road, the theme song from the only movie he ever directed back in 1958. Robert Mitchum and Deborah Kerr made a great team, and this was the first time they shared the screen. He plays a battle-hardened Marine, she's a nun, and they're stranded on a Pacific island crawling with Japanese soldiers. The setup could have been over the top, but the two of them keep it grounded. Mitchum is so effortless here that it barely feels like he's acting. John Huston directed, but this ended up being one of the only real collaborations between him and Mitchum. The actor turned down the Misfits, Clark Gable's role, because he figured working with Huston might just kill him. After the experience of swimming in alligator-infested waters on Heaven Knows, he may have had a point. Mitchum spent years under contract at RKO Studio, stuck making films Howard Hughes thought would sell. A lot of them weren't great, usually with Jane Russell, usually set in Mexico, but every now and then, something special slipped through. Angel Face was one of those. Mitchum played a familiar noir role, the tough guy who thinks he's in control, only to get completely wrecked by a femme fatale. And Gene Simmons wasn't just any femme fatale, she was flat-out deranged. Mitchum's character falls hard, and by the end, she literally takes him down with her. She drives them both off a cliff just as he's popping champagne. That's how it ends. One of the best send-offs in noir history. By the time Mitchum finally played Philip Marlowe, he was almost 60. Too old? Not at all. That sleepy-eyed, worn-down, been-through-it-all look made him the perfect version of Raymond Chandler's detective. Director Dick Richards and cinematographer John Alonzo built a gorgeous, burnt orange version of 1940s Los Angeles, full of shadowy alleys and cigarette smoke. Mitchum fit right into it, He played Marlowe as a man too tired to be surprised by anything but still sharp enough to get the job done. This was Mitchum at his absolute best. No Hollywood glamour, no tough guy posturing, just lived-in exhaustion. Eddie Coyle is a small-time Boston crook who's out of options. The cops want him to snitch. The mob wants him to stay quiet. He's just trying to survive, but in this world, that's not an option. Mitchum plays him with a quiet, sinking desperation. A guy who knows he's screwed but keeps going anyway. This wasn't the larger-than-life Mitchum of his younger days. This was something deeper. The weight of a lifetime of bad choices, hanging off every word, every look. And by the time the movie reaches its downbeat, inevitable ending, you don't just watch it happen, you feel it. Forget Scorsese's remake, this is the one to watch. Gregory Peck might be the lead on paper, he even produced the thing, but Mitchum owns every second he's on screen. As sadistic sex offender Max Cady, who blames Peck for putting him behind bars, Mitchum swaggers his way through this tense and chilling thriller, exuding menace as he terrorizes Peck and his family. In the remake, De Niro played Cady like some over-the-top monster, but Mitchum fearlessly makes Cady so much more believable, more real, and absolutely terrifying. This is film noir, start to finish. A guy trying to outrun his past, a woman he shouldn't trust, a story that can only end one way. Mitchum makes it look easy. His voiceover is flat, almost tired, like he already knows how this is gonna go. And Mitchum gets to toss off some of the greatest lines in noir history. One of them, Baby, I Don't Care, became the title of his biography penned by Lee Server. That's how much this movie defined him. The Night of the Hunter was unlike anything before or since. A Southern Gothic nightmare, half fairy tale, half horror movie, with Robert Mitchum giving one of the most terrifying performances ever put on film. He went all in on the role, menacing, grotesque, but somehow darkly funny. Lawton warned him, this character is a complete shit. But Mitchum didn't hesitate. The film flopped so hard at the box office that Lawton swore he'd never direct again, and he kept that promise. He never directed again, even though Mitchum later called him the best director he ever worked with. United Artists didn't help. The studio buried the film's release. They were too busy pushing Not as a Stranger, another Mitchum film, and didn't even bother to market The Night of the Hunter. It took decades for the film's reputation to finally catch up.